They loved you until they couldn't control you. They admired you until your strength became a threat. And now they fear you. Listen closely. When a narcissist realizes you're too strong to manipulate, everything changes. The mask falls, the charm fades, and suddenly, the person who once loved you begins to destroy you, not because you're wrong, not because you failed, but because you became something they can't handle, unbreakable. This isn't just about surviving them. This is about taking back your power, your peace, and your life. When you finally begin to recognize your worth, when you finally start standing tall in your strength, that's when the narcissist feels the most threatened. They thrive on control, and control comes from keeping you small, uncertain, and dependent on their validation. The moment you begin to rise, they feel their power slipping away, and they hate it. That's when the attacks on your confidence begin. They know that if they can make you doubt yourself, they can still control you without you even realizing it. It doesn't start with obvious insults. It starts subtly. Small comments that seem harmless on the surface, but are carefully designed to plant seeds of insecurity. They'll say things like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "I don't think that looks good on you." And they'll disguise it as concern or honesty. But underneath, it's calculated. They want you to second guess your choices, your abilities, your looks, and even your value as a person. And when those subtle jabs no longer work, they escalate. The compliments that once drew you turn into constant criticism. They start comparing you to others, friends, co-workers, even strangers, all to make you feel like you're not enough. They'll point out your mistakes while ignoring your achievements. They'll highlight your flaws while pretending to help you improve. Every word is a strategy, a weapon carefully aimed at the one thing they can't stand, your growing confidence. Because here's the truth. A narcissist cannot coexist with someone who sees their own value. Your strength threatens their entire identity. Their ego survives on the belief that they are superior, smarter, better, more deserving. So, when you begin to shine, it's not just about you growing stronger. To them, it feels like they're being diminished. Yourself, love feels like an attack on their power. So they'll try harder. They'll gaslight you into questioning your memory, your perceptions, and your decisions. They'll twist your words until you doubt yourself. They'll remind you of past failures, magnify your insecurities, and make you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells. It's a psychological war designed to break your spirit. But what you need to understand is that their attacks are not a reflection of your worth. They're a reflection of their fear. They sense that they're losing control, and the only way they know to regain it is to break down the very foundation of your confidence. They'll push, they'll provoke, they'll manipulate, all in the hope that you'll shrink back into the version of yourself they could dominate. Narcissists know one thing very well. Power comes from control, and control is easiest when you have no one else to rely on but them. That's why, when they realize they can't fully dominate you, They'll start using one of their most dangerous tactics, isolation. This isn't accidental. It's intentional, calculated, and slow. Their goal is simple: cut you off from your support system, so the only voice you hear, the only opinion you consider, and the only reality you trust is theirs. At first, it doesn't look like isolation. It looks like concern. They might say, "I don't think your friends really care about you," or "Your family doesn't understand you like I do." They'll position themselves as the only one who truly gets you, the only one who wants the best for you. This creates a false sense of safety. You start believing they're the person protecting you, when in reality, they're slowly building walls around you. Once that seed of doubt is planted, they water it with manipulation. They start pointing out tiny flaws in your relationships, little arguments, misunderstandings, or imperfections, and magnify them until you begin questioning everyone around you. They'll frame your loved ones as jealous, unsupportive, or even toxic, making you second guess whether the people who've always cared about you actually have your best interests at heart. Soon, your communication with friends and family starts to weaken. Invitations are declined, phone calls go unanswered, and messages are left on read. You don't even notice it happening at first, but gradually, you become more and more dependent on the narcissist for emotional validation and companionship. This is exactly what they want. The fewer voices you have around you, the louder theirs becomes. And if subtle manipulation doesn't work, they escalate. They might manufacture conflict between you and the people closest to you. They'll twist your words, spread lies, or create misunderstandings, then sit back and watch as your relationships slowly erode. They thrive on chaos because chaos isolates you faster than anything else. If they can make you believe everyone else has turned against you, they've already won half the battle. Another tactic they use is guilt. If you spend time with your friends, they'll accuse you of neglecting them. If you visit your family, they'll act hurt and withdrawn. Over time, you start avoiding those situations altogether just to keep the peace. Without realizing it, you begin shrinking your world until it revolves entirely around them. Isolation also extends to controlling your environment. They may criticize your career choices, discourage hobbies, or subtly sabotage your independence. If they can limit your exposure to new people, new ideas, and new perspectives, they reduce the risk of you realizing the truth about their behavior. They know that if someone else gives you the clarity and strength you need, their control over you weakens. The most dangerous part: they make you believe this isolation is your choice. They manipulate you so skillfully that you start pulling away from others on your own, convinced it's what's best for your happiness, your relationship, or your future. But in reality, they're rewriting your reality, creating a world where they are your only source of connection, validation, and belonging. Gaslighting is one of the most manipulative and destructive tactics narcissists use. And it's designed to make you question your own reality, your memory, and even your sanity. It's not just lying. It's a psychological war, one where they twist the truth, so effectively that you begin to doubt everything you know about yourself and the world around you. It often starts subtly, almost unnoticeably. A small denial here, a rewritten memory there. You might bring up something they said yesterday, and they'll respond with, "I never said that. You must be imagining things." At first, you assume you misheard them. You question yourself instead of questioning them. That's exactly what they want. The goal of gaslighting isn't just to deceive you. It's to make you lose trust in your own mind. The more they can make you doubt yourself, the more dependent you become on their version of reality. And once they succeed, they control not just what you believe, but who you believe you are. Over time, the manipulation escalates. They'll deny things you know for a fact happened. You'll recall a conversation word for word, but they'll confidently claim it never took place. They'll even act offended, hurt, or angry that you would accuse them of something so outrageous. Their conviction is so strong, so unshakable, that you start wondering if maybe, just maybe, they're right and you're wrong. Then comes the distortion of facts. They'll mix small truths with lies, making it nearly impossible to separate reality from fiction. They'll bring up past events, but twist the details to paint themselves as the victim and you as the villain. They'll accuse you of overreacting, being too sensitive, or always imagining problems. Slowly, you start silencing yourself. Scared to speak up? Terrified you'll sound crazy. Gaslighting isn't just about words. It's about emotions. They'll exploit your fears, insecurities, and vulnerabilities. They'll make you feel guilty for things you didn't do and ashamed of feelings you have every right to feel. And when you finally begin to break under the weight of constant self-doubt, they'll use your confusion as proof that you're unstable, irrational, or even emotionally damaged. The more you question yourself, the more you rely on them for clarity. That's the trap. They position themselves as the only one who truly knows the truth, the only one who understands what really happened. It creates a dangerous dynamic where you stop trusting your intuition and instead defer to their judgment, even when deep down something feels wrong. This tactic isolates you in your own mind. You start second, guessing your thoughts, your feelings, and your memories. You replay conversations over and over, trying to figure out if you really misunderstood, if you're the problem, if you're somehow the one causing all the chaos. But that confusion is intentional. It's how they keep you trapped. And the scariest part, gaslighting can make you question your entire identity. You start doubting your intelligence, your emotional stability, and your worth. You wonder if you're as flawed as they make you believe. Over time, you may lose confidence in your ability to make decisions, express your feelings, or even trust your own judgment. This is why gaslighting is so dangerous. It's not just manipulation, it's psychological erosion. It chips away at your sense of self until you no longer recognize the person in the mirror. And the more confused and dependent you become, the more control they have over you. Narcissists are master manipulators, and one of their most powerful weapons is playing the victim. When they can't control you directly, They'll twist the narrative so skillfully that you start questioning yourself, your intentions, and even your sanity. They want to flip the script, making you the villain while they paint themselves as the poor, innocent soul who's just trying their best. And the scariest part, they're so convincing that not only do other people believe them, but sometimes you start believing them too. At first, it happens subtly. You call them out on a lie, and instead of taking responsibility, they act shocked, offended, and deeply hurt. Suddenly, the conversation shifts from their wrongdoing to your unfair accusations. They'll sigh, cry, or shut down emotionally, forcing you to comfort them, even though they're the one who caused the pain in the first place. Over time, this reversal of roles conditions you to prioritize their feelings over your own, no matter how badly they hurt you. Their goal is simple: to disarm you emotionally. If they can make you feel guilty for setting boundaries or speaking up, you'll stop confronting them altogether. You'll silence your pain to protect theirs. And in that silence, they gain even more control. But it doesn't stop there. Narcissists know that manipulation works best when it spreads beyond you. So they take their victim act to others, your friends, your family, your colleagues. They create a carefully crafted image of themselves as misunderstood, mistreated, and selfless, while subtly painting you as irrational, unstable, or even abusive. Suddenly, people you thought you could trust start questioning your side of the story. They see the narcissist's tears, their heartfelt confessions, and their perfect performance, and they believe it. This is called triangulation, and it's one of their favorite tactics. They use third parties to validate their lies, knowing that if they can get others to side with them, it will further isolate you. You might hear things like, "They told me how much you hurt them," or "They said you've been so cold lately." Bit by bit, they build a narrative where you're the problem, and they're the victim just trying to survive your cruelty. When you confront them about this behavior, they double down. They'll say, "I can't believe you think I'd ever do that," or "You always make me out to be the bad person." They weaponize your empathy, knowing you don't want to hurt someone you care about. So, you hesitate. You question whether you're being too harsh, too critical, too demanding. And that hesitation gives them even more power. The most dangerous part of this tactic is how emotionally exhausting it becomes. You spend so much time defending yourself, explaining your intentions, and trying to prove you're not the person they say you are, that you stop noticing the real issue, their manipulation. They want you so busy justifying your actions that you never get the chance to question theirs. Over time, this constant blame shifting starts to erode your self-confidence. You begin wondering if you are the problem, if you are too sensitive, too controlling, too unreasonable. The narcissist feeds on this doubt, reinforcing it every chance they get. They'll say things like, "You're overreacting again," or "See, you always make everything about you." Eventually, you stop trusting your own judgment, and that's exactly where they want you. Playing the victim also allows them to avoid accountability completely. As long as they're the one being hurt, they never have to take responsibility for their actions. They rewrite reality so effectively that, in their version of events, you're the aggressor, and they're the one suffering. And if you try to expose the truth, they'll accuse you of attacking them, further solidifying their victim persona. This manipulation often spreads into every corner of your life. In private, they might rage, insult, and belittle you, but in public, they put on a flawless performance. They act charming, loving, and selfless, the kind of person everyone admires. So, when you finally try to speak up about the abuse, people struggle to believe you. After all, how could someone so kind and caring possibly be toxic? And when the mask slips, when their cruelty becomes too obvious to ignore, they shift strategies instantly. Suddenly, they're full of excuses, their childhood trauma, their stress at work, their mental health struggles. They'll pull at your compassion, knowing you'll feel guilty for being upset with someone who's already suffering. And before you know it, you're comforting the very person who's hurting you. This endless cycle is designed to break you down slowly. Every time you catch them in a lie, they cry louder. Every time you call out their manipulation, they act more wounded. Every time you set a boundary, they spin the narrative until you're the cruel one. Over time, you start shrinking yourself just to keep the peace, avoiding conflict at any cost. Because somehow, no matter what happens, it always ends up being your fault. Playing the victim isn't just a strategy for narcissists. It's survival. It keeps the spotlight off them, redirects the blame, and ensures they maintain control over both you and how others perceive the relationship. By making you look like the problem, they protect their carefully crafted image while keeping you trapped in a constant state of confusion and guilt. Narcissists are masters at pushing limits. They don't just cross boundaries. They test them, stretch them, and slowly dismantle them until you're left questioning what's acceptable and what's not. Their goal isn't just to see how much you'll tolerate. Their goal is control. They want to see if they can manipulate you, reshape your reality, and make you abandon your own standards, little by little, without you even realizing it. It often begins subtly, almost innocently. They'll make a small joke that cuts too deep, insult you lightly, or dismiss your feelings in a casual way. When you confront them, they'll laugh it off. Relax, I was just joking. Or, you're too sensitive. In that moment, they're not just testing your reaction. They're observing your tolerance. If you let it slide, they make a mental note. You didn't enforce your boundary. You're willing to bend. And once they know you'll bend, they'll start pushing harder. The testing never stops at one layer. At first, it's about your emotions. They invalidate your feelings, dismiss your pain, and make you second guess whether your reactions are justified. Then they move to your time. They demand more of it, ignoring your personal commitments or boundaries. They'll guilt trip you if you don't comply. I guess I'm just not important enough for you. Slowly, you find yourself sacrificing your own needs just to keep the peace. And that's the dangerous trap. They don't demand full control up front. They condition you gradually, step by step, so you barely notice how far you've drifted from your original boundaries. What you once thought was unacceptable starts to feel normal. What you once believed you'd never tolerate becomes part of your daily life. But narcissists don't just test personal boundaries. They test moral boundaries too. They'll pressure you to compromise your values, forcing you into situations where you must choose between your integrity and their approval. They might expect you to lie for them, cover up their mistakes, or enable their toxic behavior. And if you resist, they play the guilt card. I thought you were on my side. Or, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. These manipulative tactics are deliberate. Narcissists study your reactions like a scientist conducting experiments. They watch how you respond when they cross a line. Do you speak up? Do you back down? Do you defend yourself? Every reaction gives them information about your limits and how to push past them next time. Over time, this constant testing begins to erode your sense of self. You start questioning your instincts, your boundaries, and even your worth. You wonder if you're overreacting or being too rigid. You ask yourself if maybe you should be more flexible, more understanding, more forgiving. That's exactly where they want you, in a state of confusion, doubt, and emotional exhaustion. And they won't stop until they find your breaking point. They thrive on the power dynamic created when you give in. The moment you compromise one boundary, they use it as leverage to push for more. If you let one disrespectful comment slide, soon there will be 5. If you allow them to control one decision, soon they'll expect control over everything. Bit by bit, they tighten their grip, leaving you feeling trapped and powerless. Another tactic they use is boundary shaming. When you set limits, they'll make you feel guilty for having them at all. They'll accuse you of being cold, selfish, or uncaring. They'll say things like, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need space." Or, "Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing?" This shaming isn't random. It's a calculated attempt to make you feel bad for protecting yourself. The guilt weakens your defenses, making you more likely to give in next time. They'll also manipulate through love, bombing and withdrawal cycles. When you enforce a boundary, they may suddenly become affectionate, showering you with attention, praise, or promises to change. You start to believe they understand that maybe things will be different this time. But as soon as you relax, they cross the line again. Harder, deeper, more aggressively. If you resist, they punish you with silence, emotional distance, or even rage. This cycle keeps you on edge, constantly guessing what version of them you'll get next, making it harder to stand firm. Eventually, their constant testing spreads into every part of your life. They challenge your relationships with friends and family, making you choose between them and your support system. They test your patience by repeatedly breaking agreements, knowing you'll eventually give up trying to hold them accountable. They even test your identity, subtly convincing you to abandon your passions, interests, and independence so they can mold you into the version of yourself that benefits them most. This is the reality of narcissistic boundary testing. It's not random. It's strategic, relentless, and deeply psychological. They chip away at your defenses slowly enough that you don't recognize how much ground you've lost until one day you wake up and barely recognize yourself. And here's the most unsettling part. Narcissists actually respect boundaries they can't break. They'll test you repeatedly, but if you stand firm consistently, they're forced to adjust their tactics. However, the moment you show even the slightest weakness, they exploit it fully. In their mind, boundaries aren't meant to be respected. They're meant to be conquered. This is why dealing with a narcissist feels like living in a constant emotional battlefield. Every interaction, every argument, every compromise becomes a test. They're always calculating how far they can push you, always probing for weaknesses, always searching for cracks in your resolve. And the more exhausted you become from defending yourself, the more likely you are to surrender, which is exactly what they want. They thrive on control, and boundaries are the greatest threat to that control. When you have clear, firm limits, they lose their power to manipulate you. That's why they attack them so aggressively. They need you to believe that your boundaries are unreasonable, your needs are invalid, and your expectations are impossible. Because the moment you start believing that, you stop protecting yourself. But until then, they'll keep testing. They'll keep pushing. They'll keep trying to reshape your sense of right and wrong, acceptable and unacceptable, safe and unsafe. They want to see you compromise yourself piece by piece until you're no longer the strong, independent person you once were, but someone they can control without resistance.